welcome back to Duran ASEAN. You're with Gowri, Arlene, and Fadzli here today. And today's topic is a little interesting, and we will be focusing on our Independence Day, which is, of course, happening end of this month. And we'll be discussing just a little history about the events that lead up to our Independence Day and some fun facts about our Independence Day as well. So how are you guys feeling about Merdeka? Are you in the spirit yet? Are you all excited about it?
Right now, I just have weekend hangover.
Weekend hangover. What about you, Grace? How do you find the celebration of Merdeka every year?
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how people celebrate this particular public holiday. Yes, I see the more flags in the public places from houses and also offices. Yeah,
and cars. They hang
and
them on
cars as well. Yes, so I see how much people love Malaysia. Yeah.
Is it very different from how it's celebrated back home?
Not really. It's more or less the
okay.
same. Yes, how people do love and they show love to the country. Yeah.
What about you, Arlene? Are you all excited, pumped up for Merdeka?
Well, Merdeka is probably I think 2 weeks later.
Yes.
But
another 2
I'm
weeks.
actually quite excited about Merdeka and also Malaysia Day, which we will discuss about it next month. But for Merdeka Day, I grew up with the song by Sudirman, which we played earlier, and every time the morning of Merdeka Day, my parents will bring me to the Merdeka parade at Dataran Merdeka, and I'll be like cheering for all the different costumes that the civil servants wore during that day. And I still remember how exciting it was, especially during the 90s and 80s. I felt that I want to rewind back at that time, because Merdeka Day at that period, at that era, wasn't so much about the spirit of, you need to remember the Independence Day. I was a child, but it's more about, hey, it was a celebration. We became a nation, and everyone should be happy about it. So I really cherish those moments.
I remember back in school, for the whole month, actually, we'll be singing all these patriotic songs. Of course, we sing Negaraku. We sing a couple of other songs, which I can't really recall right now. And then we'll be waving the flags, and we'll all be so excited singing it with our friends. And we didn't really have much of a parade back in Penang, I think, but every year we will go to the Esplanade, which is the Padang Kota Lama, and there will be a huge concert there. We'll do the countdown together, then there'll be fireworks and all. And I haven't been doing it very much recently, but yeah, it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to, especially it's my first time away from my parents and all, and excited for Merdeka this year.
I remember just standing up in school assembly, and we just would sing everything from Sudirman's Tanggal 31, Jalur Gemilang, and it's like it's one of the few times we were probably happy to stand out in assembly, because one, we got to sing, and two, we got to skip classes too. So yeah, that was always fun.
So firstly, you have the theme for us. What's the theme for Merdeka this year? Right,
just a bit of fact here. From at least the 1970, every Merdeka Day has a theme. For example, last year was Malaysia Berdaulat, Tanah Tumpahnya Darahku. And from 2000 to 2006, the Merdeka Days had all had the same theme, Keranamu Malaysia. And this year, the theme is Malaysia di sini lahirnya sebuah cinta.
That sounds like a movie, man.
That sounds like a love story or love song.
I haven't read what was the reasoning behind the theme, but yes, so that's our theme. Something to do with love, I guess. But yeah.
I guess I do remember earlier you mentioned from 2000 to 2006 the theme was Keranamu Malaysia, and it's probably my favorite theme, because I felt like Malaysia is our country, and everything that we do is for the sake of this country. When we work really hard, get good grades, everything that you do, being the younger generation, is eventually going to impact the country, and it's all like for you, Malaysia. It was a very, very nice theme. Which is your favorite theme, Arlene?
I don't really have a particular favorite team. I really love the logo design every year and also the team every year. But there's this one particular year where was it last year or last 2 years where they have this team called Janji Ditapati?
That was in 2012.
I felt it was a bit tacky, that team and that logo as well. I felt that they could have something that is beyond just political party.
That's right. It was very
slogan. It could be something that all Malaysians could understood and bind together in terms of their feelings towards Malaysia.
It was definitely politically motivated, especially in line with the elections, which is why they focused on the word Janji Ditapati. And like you said, it obviously doesn't cover the entire Malaysia because that was centered on the current ruling party of Malaysia. And there should have been something better instead of being biased that way.
Another point that I want to raise was during the lead up towards Merdeka Day itself. Just to give a bit of a backstory. So Malaysia is a bit unique compared to Indonesia and other Southeast Asian countries because we sort of have an agreement, a mutual understanding with the British on why we want the Merdeka, why we want to be independent, and the idea is they granted us the independence and we didn't have any bloodshed. Whereas in other countries, they really fought for their independence. They have a lot of different revolutions happening in different areas. For example, Indonesia and the Philippines and all that. So when it comes to Thailand, and Philippines and all that. But when it comes to Malaysia, we actually started off with just Peninsular Malaysia. Then we add in, of course, at the time Singapore were already part of the Peninsular Malaysia. We add in Sabah and Sarawak. That's where we had the Federation of Malaysia. But that one would be, we have another discussion on the September 6th on Malaysia Day. But when it comes to the Independence Day, I still remember learning in history where Tunku Abdul Rahman, our first Prime Minister, he went all the way to England to meet Queen Elizabeth and also to discuss, to negotiate about Malaysia's Independence Day. What about your understanding and your remembrance on Malaysia's Independence Day?
I'm sorry, but this will be 57th.
Yeah, 1957.
Oh, no, as in like 57th, the Independence Day, is it?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I knew. Yeah, that's a key interesting point in that Malaysia. We gain our independence by through diplomatic means as opposed to a more violent struggle compared to Indonesia, Vietnam, and Philippines. But in a way, I guess that was for the better, I guess.
And that is something that we all take pride in. Every time we listen to a speech made by a prime minister or what, they always tell us that we are Malaysians, we are lovable people, we don't resort to violence. Even our Independence Day was done.
It has always been our culture
yeah.
in terms of being more diplomatic than trying to exert a more, I wouldn't say violent, but a more like aggressive tactics or strategy. Even when it comes to international relations, if you look at the MH17, people were taking sides. For example, Australia were so vocal against Russia. The same with Holland, the Prime Minister of Holland. But for Malaysia, when we made the press statement, I still remember not even a word we condemn any of the party. Not we didn't mention that because you're having this civil war, we think that you would handle it badly. So we didn't condemn Russia as well. To us, we want the body to come back safely, the bodies of the victim of MH17 to come back safely from Ukraine back to Malaysia, and also we want justice to be served whoever the perpetrator it is.
And I think that's why our theme this year is Where Love Grows, or it actually sounds a lot nicer in Malay.
Yeah.
What was that again?
Can you say it again?
Malaysia, di sini lahirnya sebuah cinta.
It sounds a lot more beautiful.
Here in Malaysia, where love grows. grows,
Where
right?
Love Is Born,
Where Love
actually.
Is Born, yeah.
It sounds
But
romantic.
It's very romantic.
but it translates to Where Love Grows as our 57 Merdeka theme, and it was actually
Awesome.
taken from Sudirman's song as well
Aw.
called Warisan, and the justification is that this theme will have a deep impact and fill the hearts of all Malaysians with love for their country, especially in line with the recent MH17 and MH370
I don't know.
incidents.
I don't know about South Korea, but in Malaysia, race and religion are extremely being politicized.
Yes.
If you go to speak to normal, layman Malaysians, usually they would be very, very neutral. I mean, I don't think ordinary Malaysians are that racist or that fundamentalist, but when it comes to the way the government and also leading politicians or people in authority try to exert, their stance, they always use race and religion as the reasoning for them to
That's one thing
justify.
I find it to be very amazing about Malaysia.
Mhm.
Malaysia is multicultural country, right? So Indian, the Malay, and Chinese mainly. And when it comes to Merdeka, that is particularly everyone becomes together and united, and then I see the love from people in Malaysia. So that's one thing I find it very amazing, and how people can come together and show the love and support this country. Yes.
I think throughout the years, when it comes to Independence Day, we have somehow forgotten, what it meant to be patriotic, and what is the meaning of patriotic in a way.
And also, in line with the place where love grows, I have a few interesting comments here, where some of the people commented saying that we are all actually lovable people, but it's the way the government politicized the things and all that somehow incites all this hatred and dislike between the communities here. And I think that generally, like what we mentioned earlier, we are loving people here.
For sure.
Yeah, probably not just in Malaysia, just generally, we have no reason to hate each other. There's no reason for segregation because we're all humans and we're all here living in peace. And it's probably something that is just so innate in us, really, that you don't have to say that, oh, this is our theme and therefore we have to be lovable.
Interesting. What about you? Your view on patriotism?
Right. Patriotism is usually defined as cultural attachment to one's homeland or devotion to one's country. And so I got this from ekim.gov.my.
It's an Islamic body, a government agency, right?
That's right. And it also, one of the parts they put in is also, patriotism implies feeling of solidarity and mutual responsibility among people of different ethnicities and religious backgrounds. So, and there's another interesting part here they put is taking pride in the success and ideals of the country and striving to mitigate its more negative aspects. So, yeah. So I know usually when we say patriotism, we get the image of people flying flags, standing up for the national anthem.
Or fighting for the country, through the military and all that.
Those are forms of patriotism, the most obvious ones. But the least obvious ones are here. I even underlined it here: striving to mitigate the negative aspects in the country. So in Malaysia,
if you can give example how to be patriotic in that sense.
It's just, one thing. You cannot, as much as you love your country, you cannot be blind to what's wrong within it. That's one way of worsening things. So for example, if you know what's wrong in the country, you should speak up. So that's already, examples I suppose would be like bersih, I guess. Those are forms of it. And it could be as simple as writing in the opinion letters in the newspaper section.
Very, very interesting, because I still remember, like, there are some voices that say, hey, if you want to be patriotic, you cannot, like, condemn the country too much or make you will just make shame to the country. But I disagree with that. I think the more patriotic you are, the more you want the best for your country, which is to make sure that it's democratic, all voices are being heard, and the country is something. It is a place where everyone feel it's home for them. And I feel that in Malaysia, everyone feels Malaysia is their home, but at the same time, they don't feel that they belong.
That's right. I just wanted to go back to something you said earlier about the meaning of patriotism, which is cultural attachment to one's homeland. So, of course, as we all know, there has been a lot of controversial statements regarding the Chinese and Indians. In some instances, where the politicians tell you that if you're not happy with the way things are being done here, just go back to your homeland.
But the fact is that right?
Exactly. But the fact is that this is their home. I'm sure if you ask a lot of people, not just me, I would say that Malaysia is my home. I wouldn't say it's India, because I wasn't born there and I do not feel much of a connection to India. Maybe even for my parents, they always feel like it's Malaysia, that they're born here, they were raised here, so this is their country, and this is where they feel patriotic in that sense. And same goes for me as well. So it's a little bit of a blurred line there as well when you talk about attachment to one's homeland, and then there's this controversy and misunderstanding, which is really your homeland. Is it Malaysia or where your ancestors came from?
And it's also a less well-known statement because it doesn't come from any particular political party. But there's also been some underlying claims that even the Malays do not originally belong to Malaysia. So it works both ways as well. You see?
I mean, it makes sense because I don't think that there is a speculation. I think it has been historically proven as well that most of the of course we're going a little bit into history now. I think a lot of the Malay community here also came from all over the Malay archipelago, mostly from Indonesia and from other parts as well.
Yeah, talking about the idea of pendatang, can you imagine everyone actually in this world are pendatang in a way, because if you look back thousands and thousands of years ago, we all came from just one area, which is Africa, and then the world just are being populated by all humans. So I mean, to claim that you are pendatang, I'm not, you have been here less earlier than me, so I would say that this is my land. I think that's wrong. That's really, really not correct. But at the same time, I do recognize the right of certain ethnic groups, as in not as in they have the right to do things better or to own things more than the other ethnic group. But I feel that we have to understand the context of different society. They are society which have lesser economic or socio-economic capabilities than other races, and because of that, I think there should be a level playing field. And to create that level playing field, you need to ensure that there are some sort of affirmative action, and that's the reason why there are certain affirmative actions I may not disagree, and partly because I feel that is needed, but only for a certain period of time.
And also the fact that a lot of these opinion pages also highlight the fact that when our Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman went to meet the Queen Elizabeth to request for independence, it wasn't just him. We had a representative from all the different races. So it was pretty much a collective effort from our part that we went there and requested for an audience before the Queen, and we talked things over and get our independence in the diplomatic way. And that's very patriotic. And so that's why it doesn't make sense when when people try to claim that this is our country and it doesn't belong to you. You need to get out. This country belongs to all of us, and we all feel strongly about it. We're all feeling patriotic about it, and it's very clear, especially when you watch the games, the Commonwealth Games, the SEA Games. We're all supporting Lee Chong-wei. No one is supporting anyone from China who is against him, and that just shows that Lin Tan, as that just shows that we are all pretty clear about who we are and united as Malaysians.
Okay, after this break, we will discuss more about what's the way forward, how can Malaysian feel more patriotic and, do the right thing for our own nation.
Voice of sharing, durian ASEAN.
Hey, this is Arlene, and we are back again with a discussion on Merdeka Day.
And that was a very good song. It's one of my favorite Malaysian songs, actually, Jalur Gemilang, because it really talks about our flag. It gives every color a meaning, and it just feels so good when I hear that song.
Yeah, I mean, I think what makes me feel proud of my own country are the people of Malaysia. I mean, To me, what makes Malaysia unique is just one word, which is multiculturalism. And what multiculturalism is what makes Malaysia stand apart from other countries in Southeast Asia in a way that we accept that they are, a lot of culture and religion and races and ethnic groups in this country that we should appreciate their existence.
And Grace, I want to ask you, since you're obviously from South Korea, but you've been living in Malaysia for quite a number of years.
Yes.
So do you feel more connected to South Korea or to Malaysia now?
The second one for
The
sure.
second one.
I'm pretty much Malaysianized already. Yes. And as a South Korean, I am, proud of this country where I live in. And there are a few facts, that I can proudly say to my friends in Korea, you should come to Malaysia for this is reason. One of the reasons that we should not forget is food.
Food,
Malaysia. They're amazing, from Malay food, Chinese food, the Indian food. And one of the reasons that I gain so much weight is food.
Yeah, and the food is not only authentic, it's also fusion in a way that when you go to other countries, let's say you go to India or China, you will find the exact same food, but it's more of the original version. But when it comes to Malaysia, years back when, these migrants come to Malaysia and became part of Malaysia, and then they learn different style of cooking from the Malays, from the Chinese, from the Indian, from all these even fusion ethnic groups like the Portuguese and the Chetty, then it became something that is uniquely Malaysian.
Yes. I think even if you go to Indonesia, the food there, they do have Chinese food, but it's been very, very localized to suit their locals' taste. So it doesn't really taste like Chinese food that much. I remember I was there a couple of years ago. I ordered char kway teow, and
I ordered bak mi.
Whatever I got was just not char kway teow. It tasted very, very different. It was more of the Malay style of cooking, and you don't get that same authenticity like you get here in Malaysia.
And we have to realize that when we talk about the Malays, the Chinese, they are not one single ethnic group. For example, the Chinese, there's the Hokkien Chinese, there's the there's Hokkien, there's the Teochew, there's Hakka, there's of course Cantonese, the ones that is in Kuala Lumpur. All of them bring in different Chinese flavors that you can't even find it in China if you go to Beijing and all that. And even
it's
the
like
Malays,
our perpetual Hokkien mee argument that we always have.
Oh yeah, there are 3 types of Hokkien mee apparently. One is from Johor, one is from KL, another one is from Penang.
Yep.
And they all mean different things.
So many foods.
And one thing interesting, even about the Malay, when people think about Malay food, they probably would think about probably what you can find in restaurants that sells Malay food. But actually, Malay food are much more diverse than what you think. For example, in Kelantan, they have the nasi kerabu. And nasi dagang, which is a totally unique Malay food there. And then in Kedah, they have laksa Kedah, for example.
Yes.
It's totally different.
You also have Nyonya.
Nyonya is another fusion
Yeah.
cuisine that is very interesting that you cannot find in other
And
places.
just let me quote that nasi dagang belongs to Terengganu just as much as Kelantan. and do not forget our very famous fish sausage or keropok leko.
Oh yeah. And masak lemak cili padi, which is my favorite, and of course in Melaka the famous is asam pedas. Sorry.
Oh, we have a foodie here in the studio.
Oh, my hungry already.
And your favorite, of course, which is nasi kanda.
Oh,
you-
nasi
Oh,
kanda.
that and even the Indians, they are diverse. For example,
yes.
nasi kanda is a uniquely Indian Muslim cuisine that you can only find probably in Malaysia. I don't know, you can find it in India.
I don't
Correct me
think
if I'm
it's
wrong.
anywhere else.
It's very, very tasty, and you have the banana leaf, of course.
Oh, yes.
And what else, Gowri?
I guess you have other things like roti chana. You have chapati, which is a staple of the northern Indian.
Yes.
They are a lot more accustomed to having roti for their meals, and a lot of other things.
I'm imagining a lot of food.
I know. Even let's say you talk about roti canai. I can bet you the roti canai that you find in Malaysia you cannot find in anywhere else in the world. The reason is I remember I went to Myanmar and they have quite a huge population of Indian Muslim or Indian in general, and they also make roti canai, which they call plata. But the plata is totally different from the one in Malaysia, partly because it's not as soft and tasty as the one that you can find in Malaysian Indian mama shop. Probably they use different oil, they use different flour, the mixture is different. So I was like really craving Malaysian food at that time. It's like,
And I think that's the thing that most people miss when they leave Malaysia as well. You know, a lot of my friends, they're overseas. Whenever they post something on Facebook, it's not so much that they miss their parents or friends. It's usually I miss the food. I wanna go back and have this food. I want my nasi lemak. And
when I was in Indonesia, I craved nasi lemak. I couldn't find any nasi lemak. When I was in China, I went to China twice, and the Chinese food there, I can't eat it at all. I miss the Malaysian Chinese food. It's totally different.
Yeah. And another one I found, one thing about Malaysia, you guys have really amazing geographical advantage, I will say, when it comes to natural disaster.
Oh, yeah.
You guys the one, it's just right there, the nicely located, never get affected that much. Yeah, so I was like, hey, I think I'm in this very safe country here.
well, actually, we do. We are affected sometimes by the earthquake that happens in Sumatra, but not so much.
It's
Yeah,
just
it's just a
tremor.
minor.
Yeah.
In fact, I think people will get excited. Oh my God, there's a tremor! I'm so excited.
So I was like, this is such a blessed country.
It's true.
Yeah.
So what is the way forward from Malaysia, Arlene? We were talking about
as
that.
I said earlier, is the multicultural aspect of what makes Malaysia unique from the rest of Southeast Asian country. I mean, in fact, our tourists, what do you call it? The tourism
industry.
the Malaysian tourism tagline is Malaysia
Truly
truly
Asia.
Asia. Meaning that if you want to know about Asia, you come to Malaysia, then you can get every kind of foods and people and experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, you even have expat culture coming into Malaysia. For example, you can easily find Iranian food and even Korean
Yes,
food. You
yes,
have a Korean
everywhere.
community in
Yes.
Ampang,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right. So just to be a bit of a counterpoint here, yeah. One thing, we've always been celebrated as a multiracial and a multicultural country, and as much as it is our our strong point, it has also, unfortunately, in recent years, been a divisive factor as well. So I think this one thing Malaysians should focus on nowadays is that the fact that we are all Malaysians, whether we're Chinese, Malay, Indian, or whatever, we're all Malaysian. I mean, if you see Tun Mahathir, our fourth Prime Minister, once quoted, you go Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, it doesn't matter what ethnicity they all identify themselves as Indonesian, Filipino, Thai. In Malaysia, sadly, we still tend to identify ourselves by our ethnicity first. So so I think the way forward in Malaysia now is focus on our nationality or our love for this
So
country.
Fadzli, do you
Malaysia.
identify yourself as Malaysian or Malay?
Unfortunately, at the moment, I am still Malay first, then Malaysian.
So you are giving a statement that is countering your personal idealism.
My personal idealism, yes, but unfortunately, I am also going by how things are in Malaysia right now. And sadly, most Malaysians will identify by their ethnicity first.
But it doesn't. I mean, you don't have to follow that if you don't want. You can always change it and just say, I'm Malaysian.
It sadly feels like a losing battle sometimes. But yeah.
But I think the problems in Malaysia is mostly a policy problem and also a constitution problem. For my own personal view, I mean, of course, it's not easy to comment on our constitution. You can easily being being put under the Sedition Act. But one thing that I feel that is important that in the constitution, what we can move forward is to make sure that people feel that they own the constitution, that they are part of the constitution. Like every race and religion, they would feel that, hey, this is what we are and we believe in it. Because in the past, we have this social contract where every race is protecting each of them, but I think that method is no longer working. Like the way forward is like everyone should protect and cherish everyone. It's not like the Indian leader should protect the Indian community. I don't think, or the Malay leader should protect the Malay community. I don't think that works anymore. So to me, the way forward that we should, besides multiculturalism, embracing multiculturalism, is to put in place laws and also policy that sort of ensure there's an equal playing field and also there's an equal opportunity for everyone to feel that they own this country. Yes.
I'm with you on that one. I think going back to what Fadzli said about Tun Mahathir saying that when you go to Indonesia or Philippines, they say, "Oh, I'm Indonesian," and "Oh, I'm Filipino." Yeah. That goes back to just having one governing party. They do not have separate parties for separate races, and I think that is one of our main problem, if I may.
The ones that I see in other countries like in Indonesia and also in Philippines and also to some extent in Thai as well, I admire the way they are able to integrate everyone into this. For example, the Thai the Thai that for them to identify themselves as Thai or as Indonesian or as Filipinos. But the problem is, in the past they also use very, I would say, not so good method.
Very harsh.
A very harsh method to assimilate society, minority society into the majority society. For example, in countries like Thailand, Filipinos, and also Indonesia, they actually force the Chinese to integrate within the larger society by not letting them to learn their own mother tongue language or having a Chinese name or even like speak in Chinese language. And I think to some extent, you need to have somehow a policy where you can embrace your cultural identity, but at the same time you embrace the larger sort of national identity, and that's a tricky way for Malaysian leaders to play. And I think a lot of Malaysian leaders are facing a lot of problem in terms of that.
I think a lot of people actually disagree with the maybe it's a lot more of the younger generation, because the older generation still feel like they need MCA, they need MIC and UMNO and all to protect them. But the younger generation, as from what I see in all the newspapers, they are gradually protesting against this race-based politics. If you really want to have one Malaysia, you want to have just one Malaysian community, then it's best to just have one party that's just representing everyone, which is why probably the opposition is gaining a lot more support these days, because they have people from all races. It's not just focused on each specific race.
The same way we disagree using protectionist method for rape. The same way I disagree with using protectionist method to ensure that everyone should be patriotic or should have this one national identity. I think the best way forward is definitely education, awareness, and cultivating that sense of patriotism since young. So, like, let's say you're from the Indian community, you're from the Malay, and you're from the Chinese or Korean. But since young, you were exposed to the idea of multiculturalism, to the idea of democracy and equal opportunity. I think even if you embrace your own cultural identity, you can still feel that, hey, I'm Malaysian first, and whatever race I am, the second. Or it could be an assimilation of Malaysian mixed with, South Korean.
What about
culture.
people
I don't
from
know.
the Rojak community like you?
Oh yeah. The best way for you to feel patriotic, I think, is to not have a clear racial identity like myself, coming from a mixed parentage. Then I feel like, hey, maybe being a Malaysian is the best way forward.
Because I can't decide which one is more
Some
dominant.
are Eurasians, but they're still Malaysians. You see?
I'm actually a
Yeah.
mix of Malay, Chinese, and Sorani, which in English can be Eurasian or it can be Portuguese descent.
And a lot of other things.
Other countries, okay.
So I guess that wraps up our discussion for today. And we had a very interesting discussion about Merdeka, about our childhood stories, and all the fun facts that we gave about our Independence Day.
And with that, I'm going to play again the song Tanggal 31 by Sudirman.
Yay.
And happy Independence Day for Malaysia this coming 31st of August.
Malaysian boleh.
Selamat Hari Merdeka, Malaysia. Di sini lahirnya sebuah cinta.
Oh, so romantic.
You have to say it with a deep voice.
Yeah.